The blue lights hit your rearview mirror before you even realize what's happening. Your grip tightens on the steering wheel. You check your speed. You check your mirrors again. Your mind starts racing faster than your car ever was. You pull over, heart beating just a little louder than usual. The engine hums quietly, but everything inside you feels loud. Then it happens. The officer steps out of the patrol car, walks toward you slowly, and just before reaching your window, they touch the back of your car. Not a knock, not a tap on the glass, just a brief, almost casual touch on the trunk or tail light. Most drivers notice it, but almost nobody understands it. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been pulled over and noticed something the officer did that didn't make sense in the moment, but you didn't question it because you were too focused on what might happen next? If you've experienced that, I want you to share it in the comments, because what you noticed might not be random at all. There's a good chance it was intentional, strategic, and more important than you realized. And later in this discussion, I'm going to explain something about that simple touch that most drivers never figure out, even after years of driving. Because once you understand it, you'll start seeing traffic stops very differently. Let's go back to that moment. You're sitting in your car, the engine is running. Your hands might be on the wheel, or maybe you're fumbling for your license because you think you're supposed to be prepared. You're trying to look calm, but your breathing is just a bit off. Behind you, the officer is watching everything. And I mean everything. Before they even stepped out of their vehicle, they already started building an impression of you. How quickly you pulled over, whether you hesitated, whether you swerved slightly, whether you looked like you were reaching for something. Drivers often think the interaction begins when the officer reaches the window. That's not true. By the time the officer is walking up to you, the interaction is already underway, and in many cases they've already formed initial assumptions. Now let's talk about that touch. When an officer walks up and places their hand briefly on the back of your car, it's not random, it's not a habit, it's not boredom, it's deliberate. One major reason is documentation. That touch can leave fingerprints on your vehicle. In a worst-case scenario, if something goes wrong during the stop, that fingerprint places the officer at that exact car. It becomes a physical record of interaction. But that's only part of it. Another reason is awareness. When the officer touches your vehicle, they're checking for something subtle but important: movement inside the car. That touch can sometimes create a slight reaction, maybe a shift, maybe a sudden movement from a passenger, maybe a noise. It gives them feedback. And there's something else, something most people overlook. It's psychological. That small action sets a tone. It signals presence, control. It's a quiet way of saying, I'm here and I'm paying attention. Now think about this from the officer's perspective for a second. They don't know you. They don't know if you're nervous because you're late to work, or because you have something illegal in the car, or because you've had a bad experience before. They don't know if you're calm, unpredictable, cooperative, or defensive. Every traffic stop carries uncertainty. That's why officers rely heavily on behavior, tone, and small details. Not just what you say, but how you say it. Not just what you do, but how quickly you do it. And this is where many drivers unknowingly make mistakes. Let's walk through a common scenario. The officer approaches your window. Good morning. Do you know why I pulled you over? Now right here, everything slows down. Most drivers feel pressure to answer quickly. Some admit fault immediately. Others try to guess. Some get defensive. I think I was speeding. I wasn't speeding. Was it my tail light? But what you might not realize is that this question isn't just about the reason for the stop. It's about your response, your tone, your hesitation. Are you overly eager? Are you nervous? Are you trying to deflect? Even silence communicates something. And here's where things get tricky. You have the right to remain silent in many situations, but in a real roadside interaction, exercising that right isn't always as simple as people think. Officers may repeat questions, they may rephrase them, they may pause and wait, creating a kind of silence that feels uncomfortable enough to push you into speaking. That silence, it's not accidental. It's pressure. You might think, if I just explain everything, this will go faster. But sometimes talking more actually gives more room for misunderstanding. Let's say you start explaining. I was just trying to get home. I didn't realize my speed. I was checking my GPS. Now you've introduced multiple elements into the conversation. Speed, distraction, movement. Even if you didn't do anything wrong, your explanation can create complexity. And complexity can lead to more questions. Where are you coming from? Where are you headed? Why are you in this area? Now you're not just dealing with a traffic stop. You're in a conversation that's expanding. And here's something most drivers don't realize. The longer the interaction continues, the more opportunities there are for things to change. Maybe the officer's tone shifts. Maybe they become more casual or more serious. Tone changes are not random either. Officers adjust their tone based on what they observe. If you seem cooperative, they may soften. If you seem evasive, they may become firmer. If something feels off, even slightly, they may dig deeper. And here's where another common situation happens. You hand over your license and registration. Then you wait. And wait. And wait. Minutes pass, and it starts to feel longer than it should. Drivers often think, why are they taking so long? This is just a simple stop. But from the officer's perspective, that time is being used. They're running your information, checking for warrants, looking at your history, observing your vehicle again from a distance, and sometimes they're watching you in the mirror. Are you calm? Are you moving around? Are you using your phone? Are passengers shifting positions? All of that matters. Now let's talk about something that makes a lot of drivers uncomfortable. Step out of the vehicle. That request changes everything. The moment you hear it, your heart rate probably jumps. You start wondering if you did something wrong. You start replaying everything in your head. But legally, in many situations, officers can ask drivers to step out of the vehicle during a traffic stop. And refusing that request can escalate the situation quickly. This is where behavior becomes critical. How you move, how quickly you respond, whether your hands are visible, whether you ask questions in a calm or confrontational tone. Even something as simple as how you close your car door can be noticed. Now imagine there are passengers in the car. The officer might speak to them separately, ask similar questions, compare answers. If the stories don't match even slightly, that can raise suspicion. And here's the thing. Most of the time, inconsistencies aren't intentional. They come from nervousness, miscommunication, different ways of describing the same situation. But to an officer, inconsistency is a signal. Not proof of wrongdoing, but a reason to look closer. And this brings us back to something important. Small actions matter. The way you reach for your wallet, the way you respond to a repeated question, the way you react when there's a pause in the conversation. Even eye contact can play a role. Too little can seem evasive, too much can seem confrontational. There's no perfect script, no guaranteed outcome, but there are patterns. Drivers who stay calm, keep movements predictable, and avoid over-explaining tend to keep situations simpler. Drivers who panic, talk excessively, or react emotionally can unintentionally complicate things. And here's something that might surprise you. Sometimes officers already know how the stop is likely to end before they even return to your window. They've gathered enough information, they've made an assessment. Everything after that is just confirmation. That's why the beginning of the stop is so important. That moment when the lights first come on, the way you pull over, the way you sit in your seat before the officer even approaches. Those first impressions can shape everything that follows. And yes, that includes that small, almost invisible moment when the officer touches your car. It's part of a larger system, a method, a way of reducing uncertainty in a situation that always carries some level of risk. Most drivers never think about it again. They drive off, maybe with a warning, maybe with a ticket, maybe just with relief that it's over. But if you start paying attention to these details, you'll begin to see that traffic stops are not random interactions. They're structured, layered, and deeply influenced by behavior, timing, and perception. And the next time you see those blue lights in your mirror, you might notice things you didn't notice before. The pause before the officer speaks, the way questions are repeated, the silence that feels just a little too long. And maybe, just maybe, you'll catch that small touch on your car and realize it was never just a touch at all.